My name is Victoria Chen, and at 31 years old, I thought I had finally found my place in the marketing world working for Dynamic Solutions Agency. For 4 years, I had given everything to that company, building client relationships and developing campaigns that brought in millions in revenue. But my boss, Marcus Sullivan, took credit for all my work while treating me like an expendable assistant. When I finally got the courage to ask for the promotion I deserved, Marcus laughed in my face and said I'd never make it without him protecting my mediocre career. What he didn't know was that I had already secured the funding to start my own agency, and my first order of business would be hiring his replacement after I poached every major client. If you're watching this because you've dealt with a boss who stole credit for your hard work, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see how this workplace bully learned that underestimating talented people can destroy your entire career in the most spectacular way possible. Marcus Sullivan had been my supervisor since I started at Dynamic Solutions, fresh out of graduate school with my MBA in marketing. He was 45, charismatic, and had built a reputation as one of the city's most successful account executives through what everyone assumed was brilliant strategy and client management. Marcus drove a Porsche, wore custom suits, and constantly reminded everyone that the agency's biggest clients trusted him personally with their multi-million-dollar advertising budgets. He had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and seemed to embody everything I wanted to achieve in my marketing career. What I didn't realize during my first year was that Marcus's success was largely built on the uncredited work of junior employees like me, who did the actual research, strategy development, and campaign creation, while he focused on relationship management and presentation. Marcus was skilled at taking rough concepts developed by his team and polishing them into compelling pitches that impressed clients and senior management. He had perfected the art of collaborative theft, making subordinates feel included while ensuring that credit and recognition flowed entirely to him when projects succeeded. My responsibilities quickly expanded beyond my official job description as Marcus recognized my abilities and work ethic. I found myself developing entire campaign strategies, conducting market research, creating presentation materials, and even writing the proposals that Marcus would present to clients as his own work. Initially, I was grateful for the learning opportunity and assumed that Marcus was mentoring me by involving me in high-level projects. I thought the experience would lead to rapid advancement and recognition within the agency. But months turned into years, and my contributions remained invisible to everyone above Marcus in the company hierarchy. When campaigns I had developed won industry awards, Marcus accepted recognition at ceremonies without mentioning my involvement. When clients praised strategies I had created, Marcus forwarded the compliments to senior management as evidence of his own brilliance. I was learning valuable skills and gaining experience, but receiving none of the credit or advancement that should have accompanied my level of contribution and responsibility. The compensation disparity became increasingly frustrating as I learned what Marcus was earning compared to my modest salary. He was making nearly 4 times my income, while I was doing the majority of the actual strategic and creative work that drove client satisfaction and revenue. When I researched industry standards for my level of responsibility and output, I discovered that I was significantly underpaid, even for junior positions, despite handling workloads that would typically require senior-level compensation. Marcus had convinced me that my current role was appropriate for my experience level, while exploiting my skills for his personal advancement. My breaking point came during the campaign for Peterson Industries, a potential client worth over $2 million annually. I had spent 3 months developing a comprehensive marketing strategy that addressed their specific industry challenges and competitive positioning needs. The research alone had required dozens of hours analyzing market data, consumer behavior patterns, and competitor strategies. The resulting proposal was innovative, thorough, and perfectly tailored to Peterson's stated objectives and budget constraints. Marcus presented my Peterson industry strategy to the client as his own creation, complete with detailed explanations of the research methodology and strategic thinking that I had developed. During the presentation, he fielded questions about campaign components with confidence, using my notes and preparation materials to demonstrate expertise he didn't actually possess. The clients were impressed by what they perceived as Marcus's deep understanding of their business needs and awarded Dynamic Solutions the account based largely on the strength of my strategic work. The Peterson win was celebrated throughout the agency as Marcus's greatest achievement, earning him a substantial bonus and recognition from the CEO for bringing in such a lucrative new client. At the celebration dinner, Marcus gave a speech about his strategic vision and client relationship skills, never once mentioning the team members who had contributed to the successful proposal. I sat at the table, listening to him take credit for months of my work, while receiving none of the recognition or financial reward that should have accompanied such a significant business development success. That night, I made the decision to ask for the promotion to senior account manager that my responsibilities and contributions had already earned several times over. I prepared a detailed presentation documenting my role in recent successful campaigns, including the Peterson account and 3 other major wins where my strategic work had been instrumental. I researched salary ranges for senior positions and prepared a comprehensive case for why my advancement was not only deserved, but overdue. I scheduled a meeting with Marcus, confident that he would recognize my value and support my career development. Marcus's response to my promotion request was devastating and eye-opening. He laughed openly at my presentation, suggesting that I was delusional about my importance to the team's success. He claimed that junior employees often overestimated their contributions because they didn't understand the complexity of client relationship management and business development. Marcus insisted that my work was competent but not exceptional, and that I lacked the experience and strategic thinking necessary for senior-level responsibilities that required years of additional training and development. Most crushingly, Marcus told me that I should be grateful for his mentorship and protection, because without his guidance and reputation, I would never be able to maintain relationships with sophisticated clients or handle the pressure of major account management. He suggested that my request for promotion revealed unrealistic expectations and poor understanding of my actual value in the marketplace. Marcus concluded by saying that I could continue in my current role with a modest salary increase, but that senior positions required capabilities I simply didn't possess and might never develop. The conversation was humiliating and infuriating, but it also clarified exactly how Marcus viewed our working relationship and my contributions to the agency's success. He genuinely believed that his name recognition and client relationships were more valuable than the strategic and creative work that actually delivered results for clients. Marcus saw me as a competent assistant rather than a talented strategist, despite evidence that my work was driving the success he claimed as his own achievement. That same week, I started quietly exploring options for starting my own marketing agency. I had been building relationships with freelance designers, copywriters, and media specialists who could provide the services necessary to compete with larger firms like Dynamic Solutions. More importantly, I had developed strong rapport with several clients who seemed to appreciate my strategic insights and communication style, even though they officially worked with Marcus rather than directly with me. I began researching business licenses, office space, and startup funding options while maintaining my normal work schedule and responsibilities. The breakthrough came when Sarah Peterson, the marketing director for Peterson Industries, reached out to me directly about expanding their campaign beyond the scope of our original proposal. During our conversation, she mentioned being impressed by my strategic thinking during the initial presentation and asked whether I would be interested in discussing freelance consulting opportunities. Sarah had apparently recognized that the strategic work behind their successful campaign had come from me, rather than Marcus, despite his official role as account manager. Sarah's offer to work with me independently was the validation and opportunity I had been hoping for, but it also created an ethical dilemma about competing with my current employer. I explained my situation honestly, and Sarah revealed that she had suspected Marcus was taking credit for work done by his team members. She offered to provide a reference for my business loan application and guaranteed that Peterson Industries would become a founding client of my new agency if I decided to start my own firm. Within 2 months, I had secured a small business loan using Sarah Peterson's reference and commitments from 3 other clients who wanted to work with me directly rather than through Dynamic Solutions. I found office space in a converted warehouse that provided creative atmosphere at a fraction of downtown commercial rates. I hired 2 talented freelancers as initial employees and began the process of officially launching Chen Strategic Marketing as a full-service agency specializing in data-driven campaign development for mid-sized businesses. My resignation letter to Marcus was professionally written, but included specific documentation of my contributions to major accounts and campaign successes. I provided 2 weeks' notice and offered to ensure smooth transitions for ongoing projects, maintaining professional standards despite my personal feelings about how I had been treated. Marcus's reaction was immediate and explosive. He accused me of betrayal and suggested that starting a competing agency was both unethical and doomed to failure because I lacked his experience and industry relationships. Marcus became increasingly hostile during my final 2 weeks, apparently recognizing that my departure could expose how much of his recent success had actually been dependent on my uncredited contributions. He made several attempts to convince clients that my leaving would not affect their service quality, while simultaneously trying to undermine my confidence by predicting that my new agency would fail within 6 months. Marcus seemed genuinely shocked that I had been able to secure funding and clients independently, having apparently convinced himself that his mentorship was essential to my professional capabilities. The real shock came 3 months after I left Dynamic Solutions, when Sarah Peterson called to inform me that Marcus had been terminated from the agency. Apparently, without my strategic support, Marcus had struggled to maintain the quality and innovation that clients expected from their campaigns. The Peterson Industries account had specifically requested to work with me, and when they learned I was no longer with Dynamic Solutions, they had terminated their contract and moved their business to my new agency. 2 other major clients had followed suit, representing a loss of over $5 million in annual revenue. Marcus's termination had been swift and decisive once the agency's management realized that his recent success had been largely dependent on my unrecognized contributions. The clients who remained had noticed a significant decline in campaign quality and strategic thinking after my departure, making it clear that Marcus's value to the agency had been overstated. The CEO had conducted exit interviews with former team members who confirmed that Marcus regularly took credit for subordinates' work while contributing primarily relationship management and presentation skills. The position of senior marketing director that Marcus had held for 8 years was posted publicly, and several qualified candidates applied, including some with impressive agency backgrounds and client portfolios. But the most qualified applicant was James Rodriguez, a former colleague from my graduate program who had built an excellent reputation at a competing agency. James had the strategic thinking skills and leadership experience necessary to rebuild the accounts that had been lost after Marcus's departure, plus the integrity to properly credit team members for their contributions. When Chen's strategic marketing reached the point where we needed an experienced senior manager to handle our growing client base, I reached out to James about joining our team as creative director. He was interested in the opportunity to help build something new, rather than working within established agency hierarchies that often rewarded politics over performance. James brought with him relationships with potential clients and a management style that emphasized collaboration and shared credit for successful campaigns, rather than the exploitative approach that Marcus had used. The final twist came 6 months later when James informed me that Marcus had applied for a position at our agency, apparently desperate enough to seek employment with the company founded by his former subordinate. The application included references to his mentoring experience and claimed credit for developing the strategic approaches that I had actually created. James and I reviewed Marcus's application together, noting the irony of him seeking employment from the person he had claimed would never succeed without his protection and guidance. We decided to interview Marcus, partly out of curiosity about how he would handle the situation, and partly to give him an opportunity to demonstrate whether he had learned anything from his professional downfall. The interview was surreal, with Marcus alternating between attempts to take partial credit for my current success and claims that his termination had been the result of office politics rather than performance issues. He seemed unable to acknowledge his role in exploiting my work or recognize that his management style had been fundamentally unfair and unsustainable. During the interview, Marcus actually suggested that hiring him would be beneficial for my agency because his industry relationships and experience could help accelerate our growth beyond what I could achieve independently. He appeared to genuinely believe that his networking abilities and presentation skills were more valuable than strategic thinking and creative development. Despite evidence that clients valued substance over style when making long-term partnership decisions, Marcus seemed completely unaware that his reputation in the industry had been damaged by his termination and the circumstances surrounding his departure. James and I politely declined Marcus's application, explaining that we were looking for candidates whose management philosophy aligned with our collaborative approach and commitment to crediting team members for their contributions. We wished him well in his job search and suggested that he might find better opportunities at agencies where his particular skill set would be more appropriate for their culture and client needs. Marcus left the interview clearly confused and frustrated by our decision, apparently expecting that his previous authority over me would translate into consideration for employment. The irony of Marcus applying to work for me was perfect vindication of how wrong he had been about my capabilities and potential for independent success. The man who had insisted I would never make it without his mentorship and protection was now seeking employment from the agency I had built, using skills he had dismissed as mediocre. His application was essentially an admission that my strategic abilities and industry knowledge were valuable enough to build a successful competing business that could offer him career opportunities he couldn't find elsewhere. 6 months later, Chen's strategic marketing had grown to 12 employees and was handling over $8 million in annual client billings. We had won 2 industry awards for campaign innovation and been featured in several trade publications as an example of successful agency startups that prioritize talent development and collaborative leadership. The success felt particularly satisfying because it was built on the same strategic thinking and creative abilities that Marcus had dismissed as insufficient for senior-level responsibilities. Marcus eventually found a position at a smaller agency where he managed local accounts rather than the national campaigns he had handled at Dynamic Solutions. According to industry contacts, his new role was essentially a step backward in terms of responsibility, client value, and compensation. The career setback seemed to have finally taught him some humility about his own limitations and the value of talented team members. Though it was too late to repair the relationships and reputation he had damaged through years of exploitative management practices. The boss who said I'd never make it without him learned that stealing credit from talented people is a short-term strategy that eventually destroys both relationships and career prospects. And hiring his replacement became one of the most satisfying decisions I made while building the agency that proved his predictions completely wrong about my potential for independent success.